Hey, what's up guys? Nate here for Sonic Academy. Welcome back. And Bitwig 6, wow. This is exactly the update that I was hoping for. There is a ton of fantastic new features in this update. Basically, aside from one or two modules, there's no new devices in this, which is a great thing in my opinion. I always like getting new effects, but almost everything in this update has been focused on workflow enhancements and massive improvements to things like automation, arrangement, editing functions, keys and scales, and so on. This update's all about streamlining your ability to manipulate stuff within an arrangement and create really interesting fluid movement in your tracks, as well as interesting melodies and such using some of these new editing tools. All right, so we're going to dive straight in. I'm almost certainly going to miss a few things here. There is a ton of things in the changelog. You're going to want to go through all of that yourself and just check all these little details that I'm not going to be able to touch on in this video. But we are going to go through what I think are the main focuses for this update, and that's pretty much the editing functionality, and that's kind of across the board throughout the whole app. There are new features for that everywhere. Then the second massive update here is the automation system, along with the arrangement, the clip system that they have. And then lastly, the implementation of keys and scales, which we're going to take a look at. So let's just dive straight in. I'm going to run you through as many of my favorite features as I possibly can here. Right, so firstly, as you can see, things look a little bit different. There's been some visual upgrades. There's a lot of new icons in places, lots of new tools that we'll kind of look at some of these as we go along. You'll see we have some new tools down this side as well. We've got a new icon for this, so we can set up the grid intensity. There's a little bit of sort of control over visual aspects of Bitwig now. It's also more of a dark mode across the board, which is fantastic. I'm not going to dwell too much on the visual enhancements. When I see something that I think I should point out in terms of new icons and tools and stuff, I'll do so. But I kind of want to just dive in and add stuff, and we'll kind of look at features as we go. What I'm going to do is create a new track here. We'll bring in a polymer to start off with, just so we can get some sort of melodic content or musical content into this. Let's just create a new part here. And you'll see it just opens up the edit at the bottom. If you flick open the main editor as well, there's a couple of new things that you can do here as well. We'll come back to that in a sec. Let's just start off by recording in some notes. There's a new feature down here. If you look on the right hand side, this little icon that shows these footprints here. We can click this on now, and finally Bitwig has a step recording mode. So you'll see as we move this around, this is the point that you're going to start step recording from. So we can just go and start programming notes. There we go, we could do that. We could set our loop there, and now we have some notes. It's a lot more flexible than just that though. We'll start over again now. Let's just set our step start point. You can actually use the control left and right arrows as well to add rests or to jump backwards to correct notes. If you hold your notes down and place it in a legato fashion as well, you can kind of run through them without actually printing the notes down. So let's see, it doesn't only when you release it properly. And we could also come back and add an A underneath that. So we've now got a chord. Could also then create a rest there, maybe do 2 as well. You can record a step with a chord in it. You can also do this while it's running. Playing a note while the playback is actually initiated is actually going to let you just move around and add steps whenever you feel like as well. So on my Connect, I'm just going to go and there you go. So that's a step recorder working in Bitwig now. Let's now take a look at one of the sort of major updates here. And I'm just going to dial in some changes to the sound. Right, so clips. You'll see there's some updates here as well on the clip launcher itself. You actually get a sort of visual readout of the clip functionality if you're adding in things like it just kind of shows you exactly what's going on there and give you a visual representation of when that clip is now going to play another one. There you go. If we were to, say, put another clip in there, you'd be able to see that a little bit better. Let's maybe just take this one and say reverse that clip. So we have this set to play this one 4 times, and then it'll play another one, and you get this really nice representation. So if people are using this for live shows, it's really easy to kind of follow along what's happening. There you go. Cool, so that's nice functionality as well. They've also added, what I think the big thing is here, is the ability to create aliases for these. I'm going to drag this into the arranger page here. Let's activate the arranger window here. So typically I could, Control D would duplicate stuff here. If I was to set up a loop point in here, I could also just keep that running as a loop. If I was to, let's say, put a gap in there, and then I wanted to kind of, copy and paste this again with this gap here. If I made changes to this loop, it's only making changes to that one now. But what I can do now is I can actually hold down the Alt key when copying, or the same goes for most of the commands that you do. So if you do Control D to duplicate, if you hold down Control Alt D, you'll see this little paper clip on these clips here. That means that we have now created a alias. I'll do that again now. The Alt key to copy this section. We can have that alias in there. So now anything that I do in the loop that I've set, even though it's looped and then there's a break and then there's a new section here, it's still going to adjust both of them at the same time. There you go. So you're making changes to both of those aliases at the same time, which is super cool to have. There is some new functionality as well. If you right click here, you can make these unique as well, which would basically disconnect it from this alias system that you have. We're not going to dwell on this one though, because I think it's not the most interesting thing in terms of the arrangement. What really impressed me is the amount of work they've put into the automation. So, the automation window that you used to have, very much the same as you have the mixing window here, and there has been a few changes here in terms of how things scale and just, again, visually. But then you also had the details editor. I have mine mapped to the tilde key. It's normally a shift tab, which would bring up a full screen editor as well. From this, typically you used to push the A key into the automation page, which was a separate window for editing automation. That entire page is gone now. The automation essentially is a layer that fits on top of everything that you see on the range page here. You can still access multiple lanes of automation, but the automation is essentially you flip between these two kind of sides to the whole project. It's really interesting what you can do with this. Well, I'll show you now. Let's take this, for example. Do something really simple, like just automate the filter cutoff here. So it's going to work on the last touched value that you have. Let's hit A, and you'll see all of a sudden we've got no clips. You've got this green background indicating that there is a clip over there. So you can do your automation very much the same way that you used to before. You can also open up these lanes here to show multiple lanes of automation. But what's more interesting now is that the automation is handled like clips, and the clips can be independent from one another. The MIDI data or audio data and the automation clip don't have to be one and the same thing. So I can, in automation mode, click over here. Now I've created a clip which is purely automation and nothing else. If we click on this now, you'll see I've just got automation data here. I can also then open up this again, just to make sure that we've got the right control selected. You see we've got polymer SVF filter here. So let's go and add in some automation. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to stop the automation there, and let's grab it, the loop point, and do that. So now we've got almost sort of a polymeter running on this automation thing. Watch what happens now when I play this back. I'm currently playing the arranger page, and I'm going to play back our clip here. This can be put in here. Let's play that back again now. So they're being handled as separate clips. I can go back to the notes there again and see everything there. And if I come down here and open this up, I can still see my automation data. But these are essentially being handled as self-contained clips that override the current automation over the top of that. Now, there's so much more that you can do here. For example, let's say, for instance, if I was starting to work on, I'll do polymer, for example, and just use another polymer in this case. And all we'll do is record something in here. Okay, I just want some, like a sort of sustained pad sound here. And let's say I was busy doing some sound design here. And I want to bring in modulation, like curves, for example. And we want to do, let's say, same thing. We're just going to do some filter automation with our curves module. Our automation curves are interchangeable. So any curve-based modulator or envelope, you can take this now and from there drop this into Polymer, and there's your curve. So now we can also change the speed of this one for the automation on the second, there you go. Let's say we want that to go over, say, 4 bars, for example. Or even right down to hertz. It's really pretty insane what you could do. These can also be saved, and you also find now in the browser, you can get a visual representation of these as well. So we open up the browser and you've got these, you can get these clip automations saved into this as well. Right, so more stuff that you can do with automation here. There are pretty extensive tools now for editing as well. Really, really handy. So let's do something a little bit more detailed here. Right, so you'll notice now, because we don't have the automation window, you don't have the same additive automation that you had before. You can accomplish this with macros and so forth, but you can also do that now with the various editing tools that they've got. So let's take this, for example. We can say we want to loop this over this whole section. So we've got this automation constantly playing now. And let's put that back on. So let's consolidate that loop. So we've got this whole thing now, just all this automation data together. And what we can do now is actually use, for example, our time selection tool that we have there. If we select this, you'll see hovering over the edges with the Alt key held down, at least in my case on a PC, you've got these highlighted areas that come up here. So the bottom one, for example, you can scale, keeping the top, and you'll just scale the minimum. You can then scale the top down, come down to the bottom, you can do the same. So you can adjust your scaling really nicely. These ones on the left are super handy as well. You can, so global scale, that's for everything. These ones on the left and the right, if I grab this, we can taper the whole thing. So we can kind of get the same feeling of automation increasing over time. And of course, course, just, you know, making an incision over here or, you know, consolidating something again, you can kind of do that in the other direction now. Actually, you don't even need to make that incision, I don't think. You might just be able to grab it from the selection. Hold down Alt, yeah. So you can actually just do that. You don't need that, that cut at all. We can just manipulate this. Let's take this one here. Change the automation like so. There we go. Yeah, it's this is so fluid and it's so impressive the way that they've managed to implement this. There are more tools as well. Watch this now as well. If you just select one of these clips, or let's say, for instance, we can consolidate this whole thing as a clip now. And again, this can be looped as automation data. But let's take a look at the automation now. If I come over here and say, for instance, just select this point, and maybe let's just select all the highest points here. We'll just take these. We can do a multiple selection. Up at the top, you'll see that you've got a number of these values here. You can take the spread, for example, and this will allow you to set randomization for each one of these points. So each pass that it does on this automation clip, it's going to have a slightly different value for those high numbers now. Watch what happens now. And the numbers reset. So if you've got shorter, let's play this one for example. Random values on each of those. Furthermore, what you can also do here is you can apply that via the entire clip. If you select that, you'll see these numbers are down at the bottom here. You can also adjust the curvature for the entire thing. And you can apply the histogram that you have for the operators as well, and the usual note editing that you have to the automation now. So watch this. If you click on this and open up the histogram, you can apply the chaos. And let's do this on this, actually, on this entire clip here, because that's going to kind of give you quite a good visual readout of that. Change the curvature for everything, and let's come here and then add in some chaos on this, and we can adjust the scaling. And you'll see it's going to sort of adjust these all slightly differently now as well. And let's add in the chaos. There we go. And it's there we go. There's a few other ones that you can do too. Let's just, again, we can select all of these, the hold parameters. So this one as well will hold a note or hold an automation node until the next node plays. So if we were to, again, we could select all of these or a couple of these top ones, let's say, for example, and just click the hold value on. You'll see it'll actually hold them until the next one starts. There's also the option now, very much in the same vein as that, to come over here and use this new spray can tool that you have. We'll turn that on, and you can actually adjust this now as stepped parameters throughout. And this will adjust according to your grid size. So if you wanted to do, let's say, just that, and we could come down here, just sort of, you know, use a larger quantization as well for that. It's really useful that for automation on rhythmic parts as well, which we are going to jump into right now as well, because there's a bunch of new editing stuff in the drum machines as well. Right, so speaking of that, I wanted to look at audio editing and the drum editing as well, because there's a couple of really, really handy features in both of those now. Let's open up a drum kit first. Right, okay, very basic. I've just brought in the V9 snare, kick, and a hat. Let's just take a look at adding a clip in here. You'll see this has changed now, the drum editor. It'll scale automatically to be the size of whatever is available. If you put more drum sounds in here, you'll have more slots. Let's maybe add the tom, for example. See, editing that now, you'll see you can still scale this up and down if you need to, but it's just a lot more easier to work with now. We can do that, or we could also come here now and let's say, for instance, if we to use the pencil tool, clicking and holding now will let you do a long note like that. But if you use your spray can, clicking and holding will just paste in multiple notes at the same time. And you have modifiers for this as well in the note editor, which we'll look at in just a sec. So let's play that back. So as I said, you've got some interesting stuff that you can do with automation now. You can also access pretty much everything from this editor window now. You can overlay stuff like the automation, which is super handy. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to do some interesting stuff with this now. We can just switch over to our details editor view, so we can still have access to our drum rack down at the bottom here. Let's say, for instance, we wanted to do maybe edit the decay time here. So we can see our decay. Let's grab our spray tool again, and we can now edit automation for this clip. And we'll just make sure that we're on auto again. And let's just adjust the automation for the decay time now. There you go. Super easy. We could just grab that now. Of course, if you've gone a little bit overboard like we have here, we can just go and select our time selection tool again. We'll grab this whole part, hold down Alt, and we can scale it and compress our automation down to be a little bit more fine. Now, there's also another really cool thing that you can do here as well with this editor when you're working on rhythmic parts. Let's open up our browser on the side, and I'm just going to bring in something. We'll bring in this break. So you see again now down with the audio editor, you've also got automation that can be overlaid here once again. What's more is you can actually now also overlay these events editors as well. If you click and hold on this, you can actually select which you want to use. So let's say, for instance, we want to just adjust the panning for this one. Let's maybe do some panning on those two little hats there. And this guy will do like so. Let's play that back. Maybe also just edit the pitch if we want. We can just adjust this to show transposition as well. Let's just grab that. Super cool and very fluid to use, but now you can also combine this with the drum section as well. So again, if you're looking at the details editor here, whatever you select, you will have the option to edit in the details editor. And it'll give you the option here to jump between various things. You can, obviously in this case now it's showing us the audio. We jump over to track, we'll see the audio, we'll see our drum parts. But let's just jump back here, we'll grab our drums and the audio channel here. Because the really handy thing with this now is that you can actually display the audio at the same time. Sorry, yeah, I need to have them both in the same view that I'm working in currently. So yeah, we've got, in the clip view, I've got my audio being displayed here and my drum editing at the same time. So we can come to this one, and let's say, for instance, we wanted to kind of mirror or replace some drum sounds. Select the drums. And I could even now on the audio decide that I want to cut stuff out on the kicks, for example. It's really easy to kind of make those decisions now with everything being overlaid over each other. And of course, with all of this editing that I'm doing at the same time, you also have access to any of the automation you want. From the drum machine, let's say our snares, we want one of these to, I can adjust the tone for that. And again, we can do that with the spray tool if we wanted to, in the case of the drums. And maybe. Okay, so we could have a short decay on some of these, long on other ones. Yeah, I mean, it's super clever the way they've done all of this. So I'm kind of running through this as quickly as possible to just kind of get through as many of the cool things as I can. Like I said, there is stuff that is going to get passed over in this video. I want to jump into another big thing here, and that's the introduction of these scales and keys. So let's just close that down once again. Right, so you'll notice at the top of the page, we've got this scale section here now, which is completely new. You can come in here and choose a root key. We'll go with A. We can say minor triad as our scale, for example. Now, this is also automatable as well. You can automate that from a project remote if you want to, but you also have a new automation lane for all of that stuff, including tempo adjustments and things like that. That always used to be part of the master channel. It's been moved into this section up at the top here now. So if you click on the plus sign here, you can automate your fills, your groove on and off, your shuffle amounts, accent amounts, all that kind of stuff is in here now. Tempo, crossfade controls, and then obviously your scale and your root key. Right, so we can just go with the root key, and you'll see we've got an A over there. We can also come over to, let's say, bar number 3 there, and just say we want to add a key signature change. So we can add in one there. That's going to be our triad. We can go to a different scale if we want. You can just select this point here and then change that to an F if you want. Maybe we want to go to an F major, for example. So you can do automation of your scales that way, which is super handy to have. Really, really massive. Update that as well. Right, so now that we have this minor triad set up here, there's a number of things you can do with this. In the clip, if you hold down or push K, it's going to lock it to the scale and the root key. It's now quantizing only onto those. So we've always had that scale quantized before with a note effect, which is great. This is way more fluid and easier to use. You just turn it on the snap to key over here. Again, here's another. Oh, now that I've just seen that as well, let's just bring this audio back in again. From that clip view, you can select to show audio at the same time. So if you're in the clip view, you can actually overlay whatever audio is available as well. There you go. You can select which channels you want. Let's bring in another one, say from Polymer now as well, if we can edit that clip. If you click and hold that down, you can actually choose which one you want. So it's really, really cool for editing notes over the top of rhythmic material like this as well. You can see exactly where things need to go. Very, very cool to have. Let's carry on though with our scale quantizing here. This also applies to a number of note effects now, which is really, really handy. We'll come in first with the arpeggiator here. Now, the important thing to note here is when you are locking to scales on some of the note effects, the pitch adjustments no longer function as transposing by note one at a time. It transposes by steps through the scale. So one transposition would equal 1 degree of the scale. So that's going one at a time now currently. But if I was to come back and set that to lock to the scale, it's running through the degrees of the triad that we have set there. So it's really cool to play around with this. We can set different degrees for this arpeggiator. Now let's go 1. Watch what happens when we change up the time signature now. Let's go to a minor. Right, so now we're going to overtone scale. Let's just change it, yeah. So you'll see the minor is slightly different to the triad now as well because the voicing is different, so the degrees equal different notes in this case. We'll go to the minor pentatonic, for example. It's really interesting. You can play around with this arpeggiator now, and obviously that works over chords held as well. So if we were to go back to, let's go back to our minor triad here. You can actually hold this down as a chord too. And it's always going to be in key. Right, another one that's really cool with this is to use the multi-notes. So those are basically fifths it's playing there now, but you can adjust this, and once again this is going to be currently setting it one at a time until you lock it to the scale. Notice how that jumps suddenly again, because you're 12 degrees of the scale rather than 12 notes. This no longer equals an octave anymore. It's moving up the scale 12 times. So to get a chord like that, you could actually do 1, 2, and then say 3 as well. And minus 3. I'm just kind of playing notes there, and it's all just syncing perfectly now. Really, really cool that they've implemented this correctly now, because I think this is one thing for me that was not well done in Bitwig before, using it through the notes fix like you used to. Okay, like I said, there's a ton of other small features everywhere that you will no doubt stumble upon just in terms of the editing stuff. There's a lot of visual enhancements like icons that have changed and so on. You'll find different ways to use some of the tools, like when you're locked into the keys like this as well. It's quite cool to just, you can use the spray now to just sort of kind of draw in notes really quickly like that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but it leaves you loads of room for experimentation and doing, interesting stuff with it. And it's just the way all of this functions as well. It's just really, really fluid. Once you get your hands on this and you start using it, you're going to see just, how quickly you can manipulate things in meaningful ways with all these new tools and just the way they've implemented it. It's typical Bitwig fashion. Everything's just super intuitive and very, very easy and not limiting to the artist at all when you're operating this DAW. Cool. We're going to cut there. I want to get stuck into this now and start writing music. It's super inspirational, this. I've really been enjoying this so far. We'll catch you soon right here at Sonic Academy. Till then, take care and see you then. Cheers.